Hey guys, hope you guys are doing well today. Hope everything's going good for you guys. This is going to be a new video that I'm going to try out where it's going to be me going over the 12 principles of animation. I tell you guys the history of the animation, and then I give you guys an example in the background animating said principle of the 12 principles of animation. Okay, first principle of animation, the squash and stretch. The principles of animation were made by a group of animators in the 1930s and 1940s, but they didn't make a book about it until 1981. Their names were Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. The book that they made in 1981 was called The Illusion of Life Disney Animation. These guys were the Renaissance forefathers of animation back then. They were experimenting, practicing all types of different ways on how to animate, how to do different ways. I remember one animator that they had underneath them while they were getting the group together of animators, that he could see arcs without actually having to draw the arcs to where they could show how characters move in arcs, because that's how they usually go, and he didn't have to use a guideline for it. So they are definitely very skilled individuals when it comes to their craft. They are the reason that we have the 12 principles of animation. Obviously, some of the stuff they preached, it wouldn't fly nowadays, especially if they're talking about, say for instance, everything looks better on ones. Clearly, that's a little bit dated because everything on ones is a bit pricey, it's a bit expensive nowadays, and it's just very time consuming. As you can see in the background, I am using a beanbag for the squash and stretch method for the first principle of animation, and I'm just going to have the character plop down and it's going to stretch and build up kinetic energy. And as you can see it stretch, it is building up kinetic energy to a very specific point. And you don't, when you're trying to figure out how you want to do it, do you want to go for exaggeration when you're doing an animation, or are you trying to go for a little bit more realism? It's a little bit more about your kind of style of what you want to do for animation, and a principle of animation is appeal. So is it appealing to look at when it does in a little bit of exaggeration, or if it's a little bit more realistic? With my thing, I'm doing a little bit more of a realistic approach, where it's kind of a little bit more realistic in its approach, except for one frame where it's kind of a little bit stretched out, really far, and then just kind of swoops back in together. Because you got to think about it in the terms of physics, because with the squash and stretch method, you got to think on the terms of, okay, well, this person just sat on something. Have you ever sat on a beanbag before? Have you ever sat on it and then just you feel yourself sink down, but when you first fall into it, but then you kind of bounce back up? It's kind of like that. All the force needs to go somewhere. So if once it stretches and it expands outwards, you want to it's going to eventually come back together and kind of bounce you up a little bit. And I exaggerate that a little bit more in this animation, even though I said I was going for a little bit more realistic approach on how to do it. But he's gonna bounce up a little bit more on the beanbag, so that way it's like a squash and stretch method, because it's cause and effect pretty much, and you're trying to make sure that it looks as appealing as possible during the action and the keyframes of said animation, so that way it looks as good as it possibly can, and it looks appealing to other people that watch it. This is a very good lesson, and you can very well learn it through pretty much practicing all the time, anytime. It's just good to keep your fundamentals up, and this gives me an excuse to keep working on my fundamentals, because Lord knows I definitely need to keep practicing on my fundamentals. And this series will definitely keep me engaged in said process while I'm working on getting better at animation in general, and it'll help me work better on more so on my short film that I'm working on, which is getting there. It's taking a minute. This series is gonna help me work on fundamentals of animation for the 12 principles, and hopefully you guys can go follow along with me on these examples that I give, because I know everyone hates the ball method, everyone hates using the sack of flour as terms of methods on they think it's just everyone does it all the time. I figured this would be a different approach on how to practice your fundamentals of animation while also still learning said principles of animation. That's pretty much going to be it for this video. I will let you guys go. You guys have a good one. Peace.